Jade Simmons, thank you so much for talking with me today. You are one of my all-time favorite speakers to work with, to recommend to my clients for lots of good reasons. But I wanted to just ask you for a couple minutes, what's going on right now? What are you seeing next in the corporate world? And what you're bringing to the table for your clients. But first question, you got yourself on the American presidential ballot for 2020. I don't know very many people who can say that. Why did you do it? And what do you take away from that experience?
You know, I teach and preach and scream from the rooftops that your purpose is never going to take you in only one direction. If you truly discovered the thing that creates an outbreak in others, then your mandate now is to deliver it in whatever vehicle possible. And as the daughter of a civil rights activist, I have been taught over and over and over that when you see things that are not right, you must speak up. And what I've been seeing for the last 3-4 years was an increasing division in our nation. And a part of the trademarks of the way that I speak, whether it's a corporate setting, a secular setting, or a sacred setting, is that I believe we must be about the business of discovering who we are to each other so that we can operate from a place of meaning. And it was hard to watch our nation devolve into such incredible division. And so I felt like if I was calling myself a person who was a master communicator, then I had to take it upon myself to communicate a different message. And so we traveled the nation under the name of Operation Restoration with the mission of restoring community to our nation. We also created policies that people hadn't seen before that appealed to people from every side of the aisle. And we wanted to prove that it could be done, that we weren't just a red and blue nation, but that we were a nation of humans that deserved to have a certain level of livelihood in life and deserved to be able to go after without fetters on the access to what they were able to have in their lives.
I love when I share this with clients, I love that you truly embodied what you preach from the stage. You went out and did it, and you moved like a maverick, and it's so inspiring. And thank you for sharing that. And
yeah,
I can't wait to see what you do next.
Listen, there were so many lessons learned, and it's cool that without having to get political, we've been able to build many of those lessons into even some of the keynotes that we've been doing this year, mostly, which is just going through the process of discovering who you are and what type of impact you were created to have, and then daring to act on that discovery.
Well, and that leads me to my next question, because I feel like there's so many people in our lives every day, at work, at home. There's people who are just on and people who are off. And why do you think some people are on and some people aren't? Is it the fear of like opening that Pandora's box of what they can do, or they just don't think that they have anything else to offer?
You know, when we were offline, you used the word stuck, which I think is a very popular word, right? You just feel stuck. And how come some people seem like they're always moving forward? And I always say everything starts with a mindset shift. So the clients that I coach individually, the word stuck is barred from all of our communication. So instead of saying that they're stuck, we have to ask, how am I being strategically stalled?
Oh, I like
that. It causes you to question the moment, right? How is life happening for me and not to me?
Right.
So if you're feeling stuck, that feeling is the signal that you're being strategically stalled. And now the business, the focus and attention gets to go on figuring out the why. And there's usually a couple of reasons. Either you're not prepared for what's next, so yay, you get to get prepared, or the world may not be ready for what it is you have to offer. So there may need to be some waiting as you're grooming and refining and getting ready to deliver what you need to deliver. There may need to be some waiting and watching for the moment when society's ready to hear you out. And you always want to make sure you're not in man-made delay, is what I always say. Divine delay is good. That means that something's making sure, God's up there going, hey, what I've got you to do is so great that I don't want you to move yet, because we're not going to be able to receive it. So hold on just a sec. And I think that mindset shift, we've seen it help a lot of people prepare powerfully while they're waiting for the next thing.
Yeah. I love that. I love being stalled, because when you stall the car, it's a moment, right? It's a couple seconds, but you have every expectation that you're going to get back into gear and get back on the road. So
Right.
that's such a great perspective to have. What are you seeing in corporate America? Obviously, things are really funky right now.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of in-person events and still a bunch of virtual events. How do you feel like companies can serve their people, and where are they stalled?
I think we saw a lot of things be politicized last
Mm-hmm.
year. Our health was politicized last year. I think businesses were politicized, and I think businesses need advocates more than ever. I'm watching so many incredible companies serve their people powerfully, not because they're afraid of cancel culture, not because it's trendy to care, but because they've always been caring. But that part of their messaging has never been shared. And sometimes the people who work within those companies aren't even aware. And so I see my role as being coming in and reconnecting people to the purpose of the organizations they work for. And the truth is, if your people don't feel purposeful about what they're doing, if they don't feel like it has any positive impact in other areas of their life, retention is going to be hard. Recruitment is going to be hard. And so I believe now that speakers have to see themselves as special agents that are actually double agents. You're coming in as an agent for that corporation, wanting to put their purpose and meaning on display. You're also coming in as an agent for the people in that audience who want to know that they matter beyond the bottom line. And I think if you find a speaker who can do both things, that's the direction you must go in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So what do you do if you're coming in and you have to figure out where the pain points are with this
Yeah.
specific culture? What do you do to dig up the dirt?
Yeah. No, listen, that's probably the favorite part of my job. I could never give the same keynote exactly the same twice. I would drive myself crazy. And so, one of my secret desires, if I had another life to live, is I would be a secret agent, like I'd be FBI or CIA, Jade Bond, right? And what I like is it causes me to be in the frame of mind of investigation. So for each company, we of course get on the phone. I'm on that call and I want to ask you everything about your people. My signature question is what's keeping them up at night for real, for real. And then I'm going to do my own digging. I put Google alerts on. I'm reading the news. I'm watching the stocks for that company so that I can get an understanding of how the people might be feeling, but they may not be talking about it.
Right.
And then I will take my stories that are personal and make them as community minded as possible. So you're never going to hear me just saying, this is what happened to me and this is my thing. It's here's where I see you in this story. And we know we've been successful, Amy, when at the end we have the most diverse line of people come up and say, that was my story. And it could be anybody and everybody. And we don't look the same. We don't have the same background, but they felt like they heard themselves in what we were saying. That's what we consider to be a successful presentation.
Okay, so if a company wanted to bring you back,
yes.
What would you do? Your experiences are so unique and they're so powerful. How do you go back to the same group and teach them something new?
I think it's the biggest privilege in the world to be brought back in. And when a company dares to have you back speaking to the exact same people, that to me is an opportunity to go deeper. And so in addition to, we have maybe 4 keynotes on the books that are signature presentations that people can just pick. But I think where I get to be unique is that we can create something completely from scratch for an organization. My musical career is quite expansive in terms of the type of music that I play. So I get to choose music that matches the points that I want to drive home. There's always going to be interactivity, some kind of participation from the audience. There's always surprise elements. I think it's important to keep audiences on their toes, to keep them guessing. Let's face it, sometimes the keynote gets a bad rap, right? They think they've heard that story before. And so what we want them to do is to hear their story for the first time in real time. And I use music to drive those points home. And this year we're excited that we've just got all new stuff ready to go. And we are touching on some of our nation's pain points, mental health, mental illness, transformative conversations. We're even doing, diversity and inclusion much differently than maybe it's been done in the past.
Well, and I remember you telling me that you got sick of talking about those topics.
Yeah.
So how come, and how was your conversation different?
Yeah, and it's not even so much that I get sick of talking about diversity and inclusion. Again, my father, we were raised being very attuned to racial issues. And my father, with me and my sister, it was important to him that we go to school in places that he felt would be less affected by racism or chauvinism. These different things were important to him. So I'm aware of them. But what I was getting tired of was the tone. And I was also getting worried that maybe we weren't going deep enough. So when we decided to speak on diversity as a company, we wanted a broader approach. So not only do we talk about the obvious, right, ethnicity and gender, but what about diversity of story, diversity of background, diversity of experience? That way you're no longer just talking to either the population that we identify as minority or the population that we identify as majority, and the culprits, right? And I didn't want there to be an atmosphere of us against them. And I also didn't want to be lecturing to people who may not feel individually responsible for a lot of the atmosphere that we're all sometimes victim to. So we wanted to create an atmosphere that was exploratory, that stoked curiosity, and made diversity an exciting adventure instead of an obligation. And so we worked hard to strike the right tone. I use humor a lot by nature. I also use vulnerability, and I tell you about my own biases, as a Black female classical pianist, not just the stereotypes that I may have experienced, but the ones that I had about other people. And I think it's important to just admit that none of us have this thing down pat. We're all still learning. And if we can set our hearts and minds to the right setting, then we have opportunity to be able to learn from those who are different than we are.
And that's something everyone can relate to. We all can continue to be learning. And obviously that's what Big Speak is all about, right? Continual growth, that growth mindset. And thank you. Thank you for reminding me of these great lessons. I'm super excited about whatever you're going to come up with next and getting you in front of more of my clients.
Thank you, Amy. And thank you for how you've approached things. We've always felt like the stages you put us on, we've been in the rooms with partners. And it's not hard work because we're with organizations that in some way, shape, or form already share our heart and mind. So we're excited to do more work with you into the future.
Well, thanks for sharing yours with us.